Good morning and welcome to the 8:15 daily operations weather brief. This morning we are looking at some cloudy conditions in the form of some upper level coverage as a result of the tropical moisture field that is overspreading our region, and that is tied to the offshore passage of tropical storm Imelda, and that we can anticipate following some drier conditions for today as high pressure begins to build in from the north, and that will be in conjunction with some gustier conditions at times as winds do look to gust upwards of 30 plus knots. And for today, our temperatures are running right around the seasonal average with a high of 74 expected come this afternoon. Now, looking at this morning's surface analysis, we do have Tropical Storm Imelda sitting off of the southeast coast, and that is bringing that expansive cloud field extending across much of the region with that high pressure building in from the north. And that's going to introduce some drier air that will gradually lower our dew points and reduce the overall cloud coverage throughout the day and continue to keep those rain chances low with those gusty conditions as a result of that tightening pressure gradient between that high to the north and that low associated with the tropical system. And then Imelda is expected to track eastward into the western North Atlantic tomorrow, with some cooler temperatures beginning to build in behind following that offshore passage. But other than that, a rather fair weather day can be anticipated today with just some windier conditions to be expected. As for our current weather conditions being observed out on the field, we do have an overcast layer at 20,000 feet and unrestricted surface visibility. Winds are out of the north-northeast at about 5 knots and continuing to increase. Our temperature currently sits at 69 degrees and our relative humidity is at 87%. Now, taking a look at this morning's satellite imagery, we can see that upper level cloud cover expanding over much of our local area and much of the state of Virginia, along with the mid-Atlantic region, and we can see that cloud cover is generally shifting east with time. However, as we go through the day, we should see our local area here see a little more breaks and a couple more breaks in the clouds. It won't be incredibly clearing. We won't have clear skies, but we should see a slight reduction in the overall cloud coverage, especially as that high pressure begins to wane away at the dew points and our overall moisture content begins to decrease as that dry air works its way in. Now, pulling up the most recent model run of the HRRR on a 24-hour loop here, we can see both tropical systems as they continue their way out into the Atlantic and remain well offshore of our local area here, with the only impacts being the windy conditions here, as we can see with those tightening isobars here. And those storms are not posing any real rain threats or precipitation chances are staying well offshore, and they're going to continue to drift away from our local area, and we'll see some nicer, cooler weather build in behind those storms as they pull off the coast. And that brings us to the 24-hour forecast here, in which we do have those overcast conditions, and then we have slight clearing throughout the day, where we'll see mostly broken, bordering overcast conditions, and then early tomorrow we should see those clouds lightening up into what should be a partly cloudy, mostly cloudy, going to partly cloudy kind of trend. As for our temperatures today, we will see a high around 74 and a low in the mid-60s, and those winds do start off a little bit breezy and progressively get a bit more gusty as far as the modeled outputs go. So we do have a little bit of color on the board for a wind advisory for this afternoon and evening into early morning tomorrow. but overall should be a rain-free day. And that moves us to the short-term risk forecast here, in which Wednesday we can anticipate those mostly cloudy conditions turning partly cloudy throughout the day, and winds still lingering around in a high of 69, so slightly below average. And then Wednesday night, partly to mostly cloudy conditions, still winds generally remaining just below advisory criteria, but a couple outputs showing that we might get there, so a little color on the board, and a low of 56. And then Thursday, mostly cloudy and breezy once again, with winds similar to Wednesday night and a high of 68. That is going to conclude the 8:15 daily weather operations brief. Be back at 10 o'clock with the 7-day outlook. Hope everyone has a great day.